Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly fascinating, honestly, kind of mind-bending essay by Zufeng. It's titled The 36-8 Trigrams Formation, which are hard to conquer. Now, I know that's a bit of a mouthful, but trust me, this essay is an absolute goldmine. It actually attempts to solve the ultimate puzzle of our universe by blending ancient wisdom with a unified theory of reality. We're going to break down the exact logical steps the author took to reach his grand, overarching conclusion. And that brings us right to the core question driving our entire exploration today. Is our universe basically just one giant, unsolvable puzzle? Well, Zufeng frames his whole narrative exactly like a literal puzzle box. But instead of starting out with really heavy academic philosophical arguments, he invites us to explore three very distinct, seemingly totally unrelated clues from his own life. These clues span different decades, completely different locations, but eventually, they all converge into this massive philosophical epiphany about the very nature of existence. So, let's look at the first piece of this puzzle. Okay, let's dive into this. Our first clue actually takes us way back to the summer of 1983. The author was working high up in the Chilean mountains, at a really staggering altitude of nearly 4,000 meters. I mean, we're talking way up there. The environment is incredibly harsh, the oxygen is super thin, and the landscape is typically just this desolate yellow. But one morning, he stepped out of his tent and witnessed something that completely shattered his understanding of how nature operates. What he saw was basically life on hyperspeed. It was wild. Literally within hours, the dormant grass shoots up over 5 millimeters. Just a few days later, boom, wildflowers covered the entire mountain range. A few days after that, fruit is born and already ripening. And then, just a few days later, the whole thing dies, right back down to that desolate yellow. It was literally as if someone had grabbed nature's remote control and just smashed the fast forward button. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer, baffling contrast the author observed. Think about it. Typical plains grass requires a full 6 months to slowly, gradually go through its life cycle. But this high-altitude grass, it completed that exact same journey, births, growths, reproduction, death, the whole shebang, in less than a month. Why this intense temporal contrast? How could time seemingly bend and accelerate for these plants so perfectly and so incredibly fast? The author was just left completely stunned, asking himself, is this a kind of sorrow or a kind of happiness? Is it a hymn or a lament? I really want you to sit with those questions for a second. Just imagine witnessing an entire lifetime flash by in mere days. It instills this profound sense of wonder, right? And it leaves this lingering mystery about the actual rules governing time and life. But, well, before he could find an answer, life moved on, setting the perfect stage for his next clue. So, our second clue jumps us forward to 1986, down in Haikou, Hainan. After grabbing a quick bowl of noodles, the author steps out of a restaurant and has the seemingly random, everyday encounter. There, sitting quietly under a tree, is an old man peddling a pale, yellow, very ancient-looking book. Driven by that peculiar curiosity that, all book lovers totally share, the author decides to just go ahead and buy it, even though it was actually quite expensive at the time. The title of this mysterious book was Qi Men Dan Jia, which translates roughly to The Art of Becoming Invisible. It's a classic text of Taoist magic, but honestly, initially, when the author opened it up, it was pure gibberish to him. The pages were absolutely filled with esoteric terms like heavenly stems, earthly branches, and the 5 elements. He couldn't understand a single sentence, so he kind of just shrugged and put it away on a shelf. But, as you might guess, that book didn't stay on the shelf forever. Its true significance hit him years later during a conversation with his brother. His brother was recounting this terrible calamity that had befallen a family back in their home village. The really tragic twist, though, was that this disaster happened on the exact same day the family was hosting a joyous, massive celebratory event. Intrigued, the author opened his old copy of Qi Men Dan Jia and checked the date of that celebration. To his absolute shock, the ancient text explicitly recorded that very date as a highly ominous day. No way, right? For him, this was a massive paradigm shift, a real game changer. The author realized that the ancient Chinese practice of selecting auspicious dates wasn't just mere superstition. There was an actual underlying hidden logic to it. He discovered that legendary ancient sages and brilliant military strategists, we're talking absolute giants of history like Jiang Zhang Liang, and Zhuge Liang, derived their profound, world-altering wisdom directly from this very text. This ancient cultural knowledge was extraordinary, and it completely shifted his entire perspective on what Taoist magic actually meant. Which brings us to the third and final clue, taking the form of a rather whimsical old family myth. The author's grandmother used to tell this crazy story about a deeply eccentric man living in the distant past. This man decided to build a freestanding door out of stones right in the middle of a completely flat, unobstructed field. I mean, you could easily just walk right around it and see both sides. There were no walls, no building, just a stone door standing out in the middle of nowhere. The eccentric man firmly warned everyone, saying, "This door is a celestial gate, and once someone enters, they can never come out again." Naturally, the local villagers just laughed at him, calling him a total lunatic. But one young man, eager to prove the old man was crazy, and perhaps possessing entirely too much pride, swaggered right up and casually walked directly through the stone doorway just out of pure spite. Well, the exact moment he crossed that threshold, the world shifted. The young man suddenly found himself standing in an enchanting paradise. We're talking towering ancient trees, graceful cranes, cascading waterfalls, the works. Deep in this realm, he was greeted by a beautiful woman who told him she had literally been waiting for him, fulfilling a destined marriage that spans several lifetimes. He entirely forgot his old life. He married her, had 5 sons and 5 daughters, and lived a completely full, happy life until he passed away peacefully as an immortal at the ripe old age of 99. Now, what's really interesting here is the perspective of the people left behind. While the young man experienced a full 99 years of rich, vivid life inside the gate, the crowd outside, they just watched him simply vanish into thin air. They immediately demanded the eccentric man bring him back. Less than an hour later, the young man reappeared, lying completely unconscious on the ground. And then, the eccentric man in the stone door just vanished. The temporal distortion here is insane, an entire century experienced in what was barely an hour in the physical world. The author's grandmother always ended her tale with this philosophical piece of advice. If you contemplate the mysteries of the heavens and earth, profound truths may one day become clear to you. Now, at the time, being a young man actively studying modern science, the author completely scoffed at this. He brushed it off as fabricated mythology, entirely detached from logical reality. But as we know, fate has a really funny way of bringing ideas full circle. So, let's see how this all builds together. Years later, while reading classic literature featuring magical arrays and formations, specifically a piece called The Story of the Magic Mirror, it all suddenly clicked. A massive epiphany just washed over him. The hyper-accelerated mountain grass from 1983, the predictive power of the Taoist text in 1986, and the extreme time dilation in his grandmother's old myth, they weren't isolated events at all. They were all manifestations of the exact same underlying mechanism. He finally realized that the true magic within the ancient text of Qi Men Dun Jia wasn't about, shooting fireballs out of your hands or casting Harry Potter spells. Instead, it is the profound ability to create and break formations or arrays. In other words, magic is actually the deep understanding and manipulation of the universe's hidden foundational structures, the very structures that govern time, space, and probability itself. So, the crucial point is how the author synthesizes all this into his grand creationist conclusion. He argues that our reality is actually structured in distinct steps. Step 1. A greatest creator purposefully laid out 36 8-diagram arrays, which are basically distinct matrices of reality across the entire universe. Step 2. We humans currently exist totally blindly within just one of these formations. And that perfectly explains why time can move so differently for mountain grass, or how a random stone door could lead to a totally different temporal dimension. We are literally inside a constructed system with specific, programmable rules. Which brings us to our final point today, and the ultimate challenge posed by the author. Think about it. If we are genuinely living inside a highly structured, mathematical, and mystical array, then the grandest pursuit of humanity isn't just surviving day to day, it's understanding the code. So, I'll leave you with this provocative final question. Who can decipher the greatest creator's formation? In Chinese lore, the hero Shi Sun had to unravel the secret of the legendary dragon-slaying saber to unlock his true destiny. Are we as humanity facing the exact same challenge on a cosmic scale? Does our ultimate destiny depend on solving this universal puzzle? It's an absolutely fascinating framework to view our reality through, and one that certainly leaves us with a whole lot to contemplate. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the structures around you.